Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Al-Kaba'ir al-Arba'un, al-Ghadir bi amirihi wa ghayri dhalik. Number 40, the author rahimahullah says, someone who's treacherous and unloyal to his leader, his commander, his general, anyone that he gives some type of agreement, an oath, some type of allegiance to obey, to serve, and to protect and to stand by. When a man has an agreement to serve as a general, as a leader, someone who has a duty to a country, to a place, to a person, and then he stabs him in the back. He sells him out, he tricks him, he deceives him, he does not keep his word, he does not keep his promise. He becomes unloyal, unfaithful with regards to his Amir, the one that he gave the allegiance to, the one that he gave a pledge, an oath, an agreement to stand behind and to protect, etc. The obvious concept of the chapter heading is that it's general. However, he starts off with the Amir, actual military affairs. And the Islamic State, the Dawla Islamiyah, in which the Sharia is the constitution in theory and in practice. And the Muslim leader, he has people that support him and help him. The main leader, those who help him, support him. And from those, he places people in charge of the army, people in charge of finance, people in charge of agriculture, people in charge of education, etc. So the Amir, as if he's a leader as well. He's a branch of the Sultan or the Khalifa. Different interchangeable terms that are used. Different interchangeable terms that are used. And the person gives the allegiance to the Amir. He gives bay'ah to the main leader, obviously. Him being in the army, being someone who's going to support the Muslims, and then he stabs this Amir in the back. Okay, that's the Amir. Anyone else that you give your pledge to, it could be a student and a teacher, a pupil and an instructor. He agrees to be his student, his disciple. I'm going to learn from you, I'm going to study with you, you teach me my deen, and then a time comes in which the pupil eventually doesn't need the teacher anymore. He dispenses himself, I don't need you, khalas, you never did anything for me, and he stabs him in the back, refuting the teacher, backbiting the teacher, spreading the faults of the teacher, spreading secrets of the teacher. This happens on a daily basis. Rather, it can even take place between husband and wife. Husband and wife. The man lives with his wife for years, he looks after her, takes care of her. Obviously, he's not perfect. No one came from heaven after our father Adam and Hawa, alayhi salam. No one comes from the sama without any sin, without any shortcoming, without any mistake. He looks after her for years. And then a time comes in which, let's say, she doesn't need him anymore, she doesn't want him anymore, she just stabs him in the back. It's a divorce, and she goes to the masjid, I have this over you, secrets over you, fulan, kada, don't say this, I'll expose you. That's ghadar. Or the exact opposite, a husband and a wife. Husband, he gives that woman his word to look after her, to protect her, to keep her safe. And she served him for many, many years out of her life. She gave him the best years out of her life. She gave him 5, 6, 7 strong, beautiful Muslim children. And then he cheats on her, deceives her, stabs her in the back, whatever the case may be. So he says this is a major sin. It's a major sin, a ghadr. قال الله تعالى وأوفوا بالعهد إن العهد كان مسؤولا. وقال تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا أوفوا بالعقود. وقال تعالى أوفوا بعهد الله إذا عاهدتم الآيات. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم 4 من كن فيه كان منافقا حقا من إذا حدث كذب وإذا اؤتمن خان وإذا عاهد غدر وإذا خاصم فجر متفق عليه. وقال لكل غادر لواء يوم القيامة عند أسته يقال هذه غدرة فلان ألا ولا غادر أعظم غدرا من أمير أو عامة. رواه مسلم. Allah the Exalted tells us, "O awfu bil ahd," from the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to do and prohibited him from falling into in 17th chapter Surah Al-Isra. Many things started off with Tawheed and forbidding him from shirk, then having respect to one's parents, then giving the rights, giving the wealth, giving sadaqah, وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَى حَقَّهُ وَالْمِسْكِينَ وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ. Allah says those close and kin, those who are poor, those who are wayfarers, those who are orphans, give them sadaqah. Don't spend too much, don't spend too little. If you don't have the money at the time and you're hoping for money to come, فَقُلْ لَهُمْ قَوْلًا مَيْسُورًا. Say something nice and kind to them. Inshallah, come back tomorrow. I'll help you the next day, next week, inshallah. When I get paid, I'll help you out. Scatter. Get out of here. No, I can't help you. You beggar, you bum. Not to do this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He also goes on to tell us, tell the Prophet ﷺ not to spend too much. And not to hold one's hand back. Everybody understand this? Give sadaqah, but don't be a spendthrift. And He tells us not to kill our children out of fear of poverty. We provide for both of you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us not to go near zina. Many, many things. And from the things that He told the Prophet to do and told the Prophet to avoid, وَأَوْفُوا بِالْعَهْدِ, and keep your covenant. Keep your word and your agreements. You make a vow to do something, to stand behind something, stick behind it. Because إِنَّ الْعَهْدَ كَانَ مَسْئُولًا, man will be asked about it. This is one of the specific things Allah is going to ask us in general. But the specific things that will come up on the Day of Judgment are the covenants that you made, the agreements that you made. Whether it's pertaining to your Amir in an army, your general, your lieutenant, someone that's in charge of you, colonel, whatever the case may be. You have a duty to do, to obey him and to listen to him as long as it isn't haram and the ma'roof, and to carry out the affairs of the Muslim military, the Muslim state, the Muslim army. Or he says, نَحْنُ غَيْرُ ذَلِكَ. He says, other than that, as we made some examples of. Allah the Exalted, He also says, O you who believe, أَوْفُوا بِالْعُقُودِ, fulfill your contracts. Allah the Exalted also says, and keep the covenant of Allah, the pact of Allah, whenever you give it. إِذَا عَهَدْتُمْ, towards the end of many ayat. Hadith number 258, the Prophet ﷺ says, 4 characteristics, whenever they're found in a person, he will truly be a munafiq. If all 4 things are here, you'll be a munafiq. When you speak, you lie. When you're given an amana, you're treacherous. And when you make an ahd, you do not fulfill it. You don't keep your loyalty, your just duty, your post. You abandon it. He says, وَإِذَا خَاصَمَ فَجَرَ, and whenever you wish to get your rights, there's a dispute or a disagreement, you have to behave in an insulting manner. Curse, swear, slander, lie, hide information, bring false witnesses, bring a sinful witness, bribery, just to get my haqq whenever there's khusuma. And this hadith is agreed upon. And this hadith has been mentioned several times in Lul Marjan. In many classes we've explained this hadith in several classes here in this masjid. Alhamdulillah. Next hadith, he says, it states, every ghadir, all people who behaved like this on the Day of Judgment, they will have flags on their backs, on their backs sticking up from their behinds. And on these flags it will say, this is the treachery of fulan and fulan. This is so-and-so, the disloyal one. This is so-and-so, the cheat. This is so-and-so, the this and the that. And the Prophet says there's nothing worse than this, than the Amir, the military leader, he says, or the general mass, the general public. It's nothing more worse than this, than stabbing them in the back and not having transparency and loyalty to them. And that hadith is in Sahih Muslim. It's a very dangerous thing here, especially if you look at what happens today among the lands of the Muslims, how people just rob the countries, steal from the countries, have no loyalty, no faith to the leaders, to the subjects, and it goes back and forth like a seesaw, unfortunately. Yani, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Allah alone on a daily basis. Husband and wife, as we said. Husband and wife, no loyalty. no type of regard for what I've done for you, what you've done for me. It happens all the time. Student and teacher. The teacher doesn't regard the student, and pupil is loyal to him. I was with you all of these years. I studied under you. I passed on your legacy. I never ever spoke about you. I never did anything against you. And this is what I get at the end. It's very unfortunate. Rather, he then says here, وقال صلى الله عليه وسلم قال الله تعالى ثلاثة أنا خصمهم يوم القيامة رجل أعطى بي ثم غدر ورجل باع بي حرا فأكل ثمنه ورجل استأجر أجيرا فاستوفى منه ولم يعطه أجره رواه البخاري. Next hadith states that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, 3 types of men, I will be their opponent on the day of judgment. Ana khasmuhum. It's going to be me and him. Can you imagine this? Allah is telling you this. It's going to be me and you on the day of judgment. Who's going to win? Who's going to survive? Who's going to last? It says, imagine this, you go to court with somebody, you're afraid of this lawyer, this prosecutor, this person, this witness, this jury, this state, this country, this city. They're oppressive, they're this, they're prejudiced, they're racist. They're unfair to minorities, to people, to men and women. You're afraid of this person, going to court with that person. Allah says in this hadith, it will be me and him. I will be their khasm. Me and him, we will have the rights. Wal'iyadhu billah, discussed. Very deep hadith. 3 types of men. He says number 1 is one who gives a'ta bi. He gives bay'ah through and with me. By Allah, I swear by Allah, I give you my word. Thumma ghadara. Then he's treacherous. Then he stabs. Then he's unloyal. He says here, وَرَجُلٌ بَاعَ بِي حُرًّا فَأَكَلَ ثَمَنَهُ. He says here, and another man who does the same, he says, he sells a free man and then eats from the profits. And last but not least, he says a man who hires someone, he hires a laborer, he gets him to sweat, to work, and he doesn't give him what he promised to give him. He doesn't pay him. Happens every day on a daily basis. This is what you want to get paid, this is what you want to get, this is what you want to make. And at the end of the long, hard 8, 10, 12-hour day, man's back is hurting, sweating, splinters in his fingernails. He said, oh, it was a bad day today, I can't pay you. Maybe tomorrow. Or maybe a Muslim, inshallah, next week. I have a lot happen. We lost money today. We didn't really come off on top. But what about my sweat? My sweat can't go back into my glands. Now my back can't go back to how it was in the beginning of the morning. My fingers are trembling from banging and sawing and screwing and painting. I can't fix that. Sorry. That's very unfortunate. And obviously, the man who says this, here, he's obviously lying. He doesn't give him his haqq. But even if that was the case, the man or the boss, the one who's head, how does he go home? Does he go home like the worker with nothing? Or is he going home to what? He's going home to comfort. He's going home to what? He's going home to comfort. And it'll be a much different situation, without a doubt. If he said, look, me and you eating dinner here tonight together. We lost money today. We're in this business together. This is what we have. Come over my house and eat. Come to my house and sleep. My wife is going to bring some scraps, some leftovers on the table. That's what we're all eating together. None of us have no money. The person would understand. Rather, he would love him. That we're struggling together. But he makes a promise. He tells him. He doesn't give him anything because he makes an excuse. And then he gets off and he drives in his car. He goes home. You don't even know where I live at yet. It's not important to know where I live. My house, what neighborhood I live in. This is what happens on a daily basis. And this is from the Kaba'ir. It shows that this act is from the major sins. And also it goes to show what the author said in the chapter heading, that it isn't specific just to the leader. It isn't specific just to military affairs and an army when you have to listen to your superior. Everybody clear on this? It's a very serious hadith here, and it goes to show us how most people today, they only use the sunnah for their advantage. For their advantage. Whenever you want to talk about these type of issues, it only comes to a leader, Muslim leader, that's it, the ruler. Be loyal to the leader, that's it. But the hadith tells us what? More than that. The previous hadith tells us what? Much more than that. Those ayat that he quoted are general. Everyone has a responsibility. He then says, وقال صلى الله عليه وسلم من خلع يد من طاعة لقي الله يوم القيامة ولا حجة له ومن مات وليس في عنقه بيعة مات ميتة جاهلية. رواه Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ also says, من خلع يد من طاعة. After you've given your hand, you've given the oath to the leader, to the emir, your commander, the one who's in charge, and then you remove it. I'm not going to obey you anymore. I'm not going to listen to you anymore. I'm not going to be loyal to you anymore. I'm not going to protect the Muslims anymore. He says, on the Day of Judgment, when he meets Allah, لا حجة له. He won't have any means of arguing and defending himself. He won't have any means of arguing or defending himself. And he who dies, and he does not have a bay'ah, he has not made a pledge of allegiance to the ruler, to the Muslim ruler, he says, and he will die the death of jahiliyyah. He will die the death of jahiliyyah. And this hadith is in Sahih Muslim. And it also proves what the previous hadith have proven. What the previous hadith has what? Proven. And this hadith is often misunderstood and misquoted by several different groups. Some of them who say that this hadith proves that anything can be done and said as long as I'm the leader. Because what the Prophet says. So I can do whatever I want to you, say whatever I want to you, do whatever, it doesn't even matter. You don't even worry about me or anything else of the affairs of the Muslims. You just worry about having a bay'ah. Some Muslims, they use this hadith for that. Other Muslims, they may say that this hadith is only for a specific type of rulers, a pious, righteous ruler. And if the ruler isn't pious, if he isn't sinful, then don't obey him, don't listen to him, don't give your oath of allegiance at all. And others, they may say that this hadith pertains to an Islamic ruler, a legitimate ruler, as far as someone who's a king, as far as someone who's a prince, as far as someone who is voted in and voted out, as far as someone who's in a secular country in which they themselves admit that we rule with 30% Sharia and 70% democracy, 20% Sharia and 80% man-made laws and ethics and so on and so forth. And some of them, they say that this is not what's meant by giving him the allegiance. The bay'ah is given to the hakim shar'i, the ruler that has the actual conditions and prerequisites of a ruler, of a Muslim ruler. It's a very long discussion. I don't know how many people, they misunderstand the hadith. Some go here, some go there, some go up top, some go below, unfortunately. The next hadith, he says, وَقَالَ مَنْ أَحَبَّ أَنْ يُزَحْزَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَيُدْخَلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَلْتَأْتِهِ مُنِيَّتُهُ وَهُوَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَيَأْتِي إِلَى النَّاسِ بِالَّذِي أو الذي يحب أن يؤتى إليه ومن بايع إماما فأعطاه صفقة يده وثمرة قلبه فليعطيه إن استطاع فإن جاء آخر ينازعه فاضربوا عنق الآخر. The Prophet ﷺ is quoted in the next hadith to say, those who love to be saved from the fire and allowed entrance into paradise, then they should allow death to come to them as believers in Allah on the last day. And you should treat people how you like to be treated. They should treat individuals how they like to be treated. And anyone who gives bay'ah, he gives him an oath of allegiance to an imam, and he gives him his hand, he gives him his loyalty, he promises him, he says, ثَمَرَةَ قَلْبِهِ, the fruits of his heart. He says, then let him give to what he can. Let him give what he can. And if another one comes, trying to dispute and debate with the first leader, he says, then kill the latter. Execute him. In other words, he's trying to split up the Muslims, cause corruption among the Muslims. I've given my bay'ah to this imam. He is the legitimate ruler. You're coming to dispute him. That is impermissible. And this hadith is in Sahih Muslim. The next hadith says, وقال صلى الله عليه وسلم من أطاعني فقد أطاع الله ومن عصاني فقد عصى الله ومن يطع الأمير فقد أطاعني ومن يعصي الأمير فقد عصاني متفق عليه. Next hadith states that the Prophet ﷺ says, he who obeys me has obeyed Allah, and he who disobeys me has done the same with Allah. Those who obey their Amir as if they're obeying me, and those who disobey the Amir as if they are disobeying me. And the hadith is agreed upon. وَقَالَ مَنْ كَرِهَ مِنْ أَمِيرِهِ شَيْئًا فَلْيَصْبِرْ فإنه من خرج من السلطان شبرا مات ميتة جاهلية متفق عليه. He says those who dislike things from their leaders, then they should be patient. For those who abandon them, who refuse to follow them, to fight with them, he says they will die the death of jahiliyah. وقال صلى الله عليه وسلم من خرج من الجماعة قيد شبر فقد خلع ربقة الإسلام من عنقه وهذا صحيح من وجوه عدة صحاح. وأي جرم أعظم من أن تبايع رجلا ثم تنزع يدك من طاعته وتنكث الصفقة وتقاتله بسيفك وتخذله حتى يقتل. The Messenger of Allah says in the next hadith, anyone who leaves the jama'ah, who splits up the jama'ah, qayd shibr, he says by a cubit, by a handspan, just a little. He says then he has removed the noose of Islam from his neck. And this hadith is authentic, he says, from several different routes of transmission. He says, and what could be worse? What sin is worse? For you to give an imam bay'ah, then remove your hand, then betray him, then turn your back on him, fight him until he is killed. The Prophet also says, "Man hamala alayna as-silaha falaysa minna." Sahihun. He who bears weapons against us, he who wields and brandishes steel against us, says he's not from us. And this hadith is sahih. And that's the end of the chapter. So we've clearly proven here from this hadith this is a major sin, it's haram, and it is unlawful to be done. As far as the confusion that we find today among the Muslims and the non-Muslims regarding Islamic leadership, regarding Islamic politics, regarding the military affairs of the Muslims, rulers, kings, princes, sultans, Islamic state, Khalifa, Prime Minister, Republic, Arab Republic, so on and so on and so forth, revolt, Arab Spring, protesting, fighting, killing, it's chaotic. And the reason behind all of this chaos is people being far from the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Leader and subject. Leader and subject. Al-bu'd an sunnah. And loving the dunya and loving the people of the dunya, fearing them, looking for their good and fearing their harm. Imitating the kuffar, wishing to be like the kuffar, being heedless from these ahadith and many others. These are all the reasons behind this. Why we find a chaotic situation in the lands of the Muslims. Places, countries, which there used to be dynasties, kingdoms, and the people live like rats today. So how did this become? How did this go from this great dynasty, this great world power, to people having total famine, impoverished? How was this place, this area where the Muslims used to live, used to send armies, used to send scholars, made science, technology, all of these different things of civilization. Now look how it is now. It didn't happen overnight. There's a reason behind these things happening. And from the ways of getting out of all of this headache and sorrow and heartache is returning back to what the Prophet ﷺ commanded and instructed and advised, and taking his guidance. Obviously, this is not going to be an easy task. Anyone who wishes to go back to this is going to be attacked physically and metaphysically. They're going to attack him, slander him. You're this, you're that, you're so on and so forth. It's a very serious thing. And anyone who wishes to undergo this task of trying to rectify himself and rectify those who are around him, let him prepare for an onslaught. Prepare yourself for an attack. People are going to attack you in America for you growing your beard. They're going to attack you for you advising others to grow their beards. They're going to attack you for saying that let's learn the sunnah, let's study the hadith, and not what this one says and what that one says. You're going to be attacked. Trying to rectify yourself with your wife. You and your wife, many years went by, and you guys unfortunately didn't pray. You weren't identified as Muslims. You were Muslims by name. That's it. Maybe in Ramadan, maybe in Eid, that's it. You hear something, you learn something, you try to practice the deen now on a daily 9 to 5 basis. What you eat, how you dress, whatever the case may be. And your wife is still wishing, she wants to what? Live in the past. Why are you extreme now? Why are you harsh? what happened to you. You used to be so nice, so kind. Now look at you. You have to go to the mosque every day. You have to wear this every day. You have to dress like this every day. You have to have a beard every day. We can't go out and drink. We can't do this no more. We can't go visit this one and that one. Get ready to be attacked. Maybe your children may attack you. Your neighbors may attack you. The kuffar of the country in which you live in, they may attack you. You're extremists, you're terrorists, you're this, you're that. You're fundamentalist, you're a Wahhabi. And the list goes on. The list goes on of slander and of physical harm. So anyone who wishes to try to do that within himself and those who are among him first, man, I'm talking about another country, take just the people that are around you, know for sure that it's going to be hard and difficult. It's not going to be a simple, easy thing. So that's why you have to be patient upon the harms. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات تواصوا بالحق تواصوا بالصبر. You must be patient. والله تعالى أعلم.